All right, everybody. The weather is getting cold, but right now my mic is hot. I haven't been recording in a while, but I'm back at it in this episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone, or should I say welcome back to the Scho-Zone. It is your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you. I am doing this live right now on YouTube because, well, I figured if I did it live, I have no choice but to run with it. And here I am. It's been a little while since I've done anything. I want to say I haven't done anything since the election, which was maybe not one of my more popular episodes. I mean, it got a decent amount of views, but it lost me some subscribers because, apparently people don't respect other people's opinions or the way they feel about things, which we can head into a little bit later. And then we're going to have an episode that I'm going to be recording today that's really, really going to really change a lot of that, or at least change a lot of my thoughts. But welcome to Scho-Zone. We're back at it here. So everybody like, share, subscribe, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts say has become kind of my little intro line here. I don't know if you're watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can also catch the audio versions on any podcast platforms. And if you're listening on the podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you can always come over here and check it out on the actual YouTube channel. Is what it is. Got a bunch to talk about to just kind of let it rip. We got some people in the live stream. Everybody, thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that douchebag stuff. Like I said, I just kind of threw out a quick episode title on this one. It's been a little bit going since I've done anything. Life gets in the way, as they always say. I've been pretty busy with work-related stuff. Also, new development in the Scho-Zone. I kind of have a significant other now. That just kind of came out of left field, but that's how that's supposed to happen, I guess. You're find the things you're not looking for when you're not looking for them at all. She's been lovely, been giving her my time, and today's the day I have a little bit of time to do things for myself. So that's been wonderful. And we also have it. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And yeah, just trying to get back at it. Feeling a lot better too. Actually, I was kind of sick last week, or just run down. I feel like, as I've been saying to anybody that is around me in my personal life, I basically am trying to consolidate a 28-hour day into 24 hours, and eventually that takes its toll on me. Especially when I'm not no spring chicken anymore. I'm 39 years old, closing in on 40. Not sure how much longer I'm supposed to keep doing this, but allegedly the guy that we just elected into office, he can do this all day, every day. But as he says, he's built a little bit differently. And I got to work on whatever the hell he's doing. Maybe all of those years in drinking and drugging kind of set me behind, but we're going on over 2 years without any of the booze. And I have not smoked weed. And geez, we're in the middle of November. What started as a sober October has just kind of turned into a lifestyle change, which is good because the girl that I met, if I was still a pothead, probably wouldn't have given me the time of day. So she met me one way. I kind of like the idea of staying that way. Not saying I won't ever take a puff every now and again, sometime down the road, but maybe I just won't inhale as much. So let's kind of wrap it up here. One thing I actually got to share with her a little bit is that she's it's funny that she told me she was a big fan of wrestling, of the WWE, or not a big fan, but she enjoyed watching that stuff. And she really wanted to watch the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, which basically was just a glorified version of the WWE as far as I'm concerned. It's just such a sad state of affairs for boxing. Not that I was ever the hugest boxing fan, but I do remember watching boxing growing up. I do remember Mike Tyson growing up. In fact, Mike Tyson actually fought in my hometown of Troy, New York. One of his most, I guess, not really controversial fights, given the legacy that he has, or the history of fights that he has. But his first fight that did not immediately result in a knockout actually took place right down the road from where I grew up at the Houston Fieldhouse, which is where the RPI hockey team plays. And for those of you who don't know, that's Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is a world-renowned university that I basically grew up in the middle of their campus. My father was an employee of theirs, and he actually worked ringside security during the Tyson fights. I think he fought there twice, actually, but he worked for those. And the one fight that he had, I don't know what the guy's name was or whatever. And I probably should be more researched on these things before I go onto a live mic, but it's kind of what I do in the Scho-Zone. I just kind of wing it for the most part. I mean, I have some things I prepared. But Mike Tyson, every fight that he started off with was by knockouts. He did have a fight at the Houston Fieldhouse in Troy where he was on the verge of getting another knockout, and the guy that he was fighting basically just got intentionally disqualified. So it initially did not go down as a knockout. It went down as a win by DQ. Eventually, they went back and they did give him credit for that knockout because the guy basically intentionally got disqualified to avoid getting knocked out. He basically started grabbing Tyson by the arms, not your standard clench, kind of like the please stop hitting me thing. Where I'm going with this was that, everyone wanted to watch. I mean, I knew that this fight was going to be terrible. It was just never the way that the rules were set up for it. In fact, I went from not wanting to bet it to just kind of enough people talking about it. And usually when people start talking one way, I like to go the other way. It's usually a good way to go in the world of gambling. But a lot of people went on the idea that Tyson would be able to knock out Jake Paul just because, they showed the training session videos of Tyson and good and short bursts. We didn't see the time leading up to those, like little 30-second clips. We didn't see what would happen afterwards. But again, I'm not trying to sit here and talk about me being a fighter of any form or anything like that. But I do know that sparring and fighting are probably a lot different. I've survived a sparring session or two in my life. I doubt I would make it a fucking round. Just even, I couldn't shadow box for a round in the ring. Realistically, that's how much that takes out of somebody. But everybody, I think, is more or less they wanted to see Jake Paul get knocked out. And I totally get it. Jake Paul is not a very, very likable figure. But that's part of his shtick and what works on this one. And the fact of the matter is that people are only further empowering him by wanting to watch him to lose. But he is smart enough to not to set up fights that he will not necessarily lose. I mean, he lost the one fight against Tyson Fury's little brother, Tommy Fury, which Tommy Fury is kind of like an actual boxer, I guess. So kind of take that, into consideration when evaluating whether Jake Paul is actually a good boxer or not. I mean, you get better boxer than me, puts his work in there, but I just don't think that if he was to fight an actual regular fighter, things would fare too well for him. We got 5 people in here. That's beautiful. I just kind of wanted to get this one out here so I could have something on here. So again, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that douchebag stuff that I like to say. So I kind of made this comparison, though, is that so many people, they watch that fight, which, by the way, so many people watch that fight that Netflix crashed, which we're just such a spoiled society at this point in time. I mean, Netflix, I hadn't had Netflix in forever because I just don't have enough time to watch shit. And I just tired of throwing away money. I mean, I say that as a guy who gambles regularly, but $6.99 a month for something that most times when I have a streaming app, it's just to scroll around for things I may or may not watch, or just to look and see what's on there. I very rarely end up actually watching anything, but decided to throw on the Netflix fight. Wasn't sure if it was my internet because anytime, I'm not sure where you are in the world or where you are in America, but we have Spectrum internets around here, and Spectrum internet is just reliably unreliable. So I assumed it was just my internet. But then when I opened up social media, I saw that everybody's the Netflix was crashing. But basically, everybody can't stand Jake Paul and they want to see him get knocked out. But the way the fight was scripted, or not scripted, well, scripted, maybe that was a Freudian slip in there. The way the fight was set up is that it was probably not going to be a knockout. 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves makes it so that, I mean, Tyson, maybe with 10-ounce gloves, maybe one of those shots he hit Jake Paul with early on, maybe that would have caused a lot more damage. But that extra 4 ounces and the padding on there, it was just basically like they had headgear on, more or less, with how the padding level in the boxing there. I ended up taking Jake Paul by decision because it seemed like that the rules were catered to them just being out there for a couple rounds. And you know what? I mean, hats off to Tyson to an extent to me, I guess I'll say, is that, at 58 years old, to even look the way he did, which, by the way, really could have gone the rest of my life without seeing Mike Tyson's bare ass, but that, that happened. And we're never going to get that one back. That's almost up there with seeing, I mean, aesthetically, I'll say this as a confident heterosexual male, or cisgendered male, or whatever the hell they call it these days. I will say that seeing Mike Tyson's bare ass was still way better than the time I saw Prince Fielder in the ESPN body issue. That one still never gets burned out of my brain. And because I saw that, I share that every year on Facebook, because if it's burned into my brain, it should be burned into everybody else's as far as I'm concerned. We're all going to suffer equally on that one. Almost carrying a thought here, just kind of like I said, on cup of coffee number 2 right now. So, yeah, so you had that whole little, it was just basically a spectacle. Now, you did not get the knockout that you wanted out of that one, or, Tyson, he had, the epitome of a puncher's chance was what Tyson had in that fight. But the rules were kind of stacked against him in that one. I looked at it as that he was going to probably when I actually posted a Facebook video about this one or on Instagram, which if you scroll down to the bottom here, or you look on the little scroll ticker on this, or if you're listening, I guess you wouldn't know this, but you can always follow me at the Scho-Zone or Ryan Schofield on Facebook, or I have my Instagram account, SCHO525, which is also the same thing I use for Twitter, which Twitter's just become the worst place on the face of the earth. Not that it already wasn't terrible, but we'll go down that road in a minute or two, I guess. Anyway, so everyone, they hate Jake Paul, but yet because they hate him, they are further empowering him in the sense. And I compare this, I made this analogy with Jake Paul and the way I have this title is he reminds me of the Jersey Shore back in the day, which I think is still going on, which is just really sad and pathetic, I would say. But hey, they're getting paid and people are watching. That's how it works. But I remember when the Jersey Shore first came out, it seemed like everybody just hated it so much, but yet they watched it to hate it more, which they were saying, oh, why are these guys making so much money when they're just a bunch of fucking Jersey douchebags or whatever? And I'm like, because you're watching it. It's almost like before Howard Stern became the guy that he is nowadays, we did have that movie Private Parts. And I'll always remember the part in Private Parts where Pig Vomits, his producer or whatever, or the guy, the executive at NBC, when they find out that the average Stern fan listened for a half an hour, and then they find out that the reason was being is that they wanted to hear what he would say next, but the average Stern hater listened for almost 2.5 hours. And the reason most commonly cited is because they wanted to hear what they say next. This is a condition that people have as far as, that, in this country, that we pay so much attention to the things that we hate because we want to see bad things happen to them. It's such a flawed way of going through things. Like I can always remember everybody wanted to the Super Bowl with the Patriots when the Patriots were in their run with Brady and Belichick always got higher ratings than when they weren't in there. And it was because everybody wanted to see the Patriots lose. And it's like, I almost compared them to the movie A Few Good Men, where Jack Nicholson talks about, as much as you don't want me on that wall, you need me on that wall. People need to have stuff to hate, which is just, I'm not saying I'm holier than thou. That was me for a long portion of life. It's not a great way to go through life. I'll just tell you that much. As I've tried to be a little more positive with things, things are going a little bit better for me. Again, if I was a negative pot smoking piece of shit, the girl that is now in my life probably wouldn't have gotten past the first phone call probably. But because I now have what she calls this positive, wonderful energy, I'm able to make things happen that I never thought would happen. So again, just kind of doing the typical morning rant and rave. I'm actually going to be killing some time because what I'm doing with my day off today, and I'm probably going to have to change outfits, or maybe if you notice that I have a couple of episodes that I are on the video format where I'm wearing the same clothes, it's because I'm recording a couple of episodes today. But yeah, back to the Jake Paul and the Jersey Shore thing. Jake Paul is, going to continue to play the game very well. I mean, this is sadly the most popular boxing event I think we ever had, or something along those lines. The fact he was able to sell out fucking the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, Jerry World, on this fight, it's just, I mean, hats off to him as the marketing genius. I mean, I can't stand the guy myself, but I was probably not going to watch that fight live because I didn't really feel like paying for that, which again, people get upset for paying $6.99 to watch a Mike Tyson fight. Imagine back in the heyday of Mike Tyson when people were spending $50 of 1990s money to watch him beat somebody up and knock him out in less than in the first round. I mean, there's the Peter McNeely fights where I think that one lasted like 28 seconds or something ridiculous like that. Like basically, if you went to take a piss at the wrong time, you missed the entire fight. But Tyson still is just as great of a box office draw. But I love his attitude towards things, like when they brought up the legacy deal, and he basically terrified some little young reporter by saying, when we die, when my legacy doesn't matter, when I die, I'm just going to be dust again. And Mike Tyson at 58 years old, he's not exactly a normal 58 years old. He's probably snorted enough cocaine to fill a bathtub throughout the course of his life. I mean, shit, there was the period of time where if you look at Mike Tyson in The Hangover, the movie there, I mean, what was he probably weighing there? Like 275 pounds or so? Like Mike Tyson got to a point that you get those certain athletes that it's tough to describe to somebody who never watched them in their prime, that when they see something like that, like, oh yeah, by the way, this guy was one of the best of all time at one point in time, or you show him what he looked like before, it's hard to believe. So hats off to Mike Tyson for getting out there, but he did look every bit his age. I would say the analogy I made before the fight started when he was coming out there, you just, when they're showing clips of young Mike Tyson and they showed the clip of him, again, hopefully my ass looks as good as him at 58. That's, the one thing I'll say, that's, I can say that again as a confident heterosexual male, but the look on his eyes, you can just see the eyes on him, is that you're like, Jesus, this guy, I mean, he looks like somebody that if he was part of your family and you had like a, Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, you have to wake him up from his nap that starts, to go to dinner kind of thing. Like, he takes a 2 o'clock and the 3 o'clock in the afternoon nap. Allegedly says he was training under the influence of psychedelic mushrooms, which those are starting to gain some traction in the world. I'll tell you right now, I don't have the weeds, I don't have the booze, but a good microdose here and there, that still gets the job done, I'll say. And again, just like everything else, if you take things the right way, they probably go okay. But once you get a little too carried away with things, and especially on psychedelics, watch the fuck out. But yeah, so Tyson, they put out a product for us that at the end of it, though, Jake Paul, when, and this is what I hate, this him and his brother, I mean, again, they know what they're doing. They got their shtick. But for Jake Paul to say that Canelo Alvarez has to call him out, I mean, Canelo Alvarez, I'm pretty sure has a lot of money as it is. If he really, really wants to have a paycheck, I'm sure he could get one fighting Jake Paul. But Jake Paul is too smart to ever do a straight boxing match with Canelo Alvarez. Like, we on the social medias, gambling Twitter, I think that they said that, you would make Jake Paul a like minus freaking 10,000 favorites over, or Canelo Alvarez would be like minus 10,000, and to knock him out would probably be minus 1,000 kind of thing. But again, he does have that kind of draw going. He picks his fights well, and it's, I don't mind the idea of that, the way that he does this. Now, they didn't let you legally bet on that fight in New York State because they knew it was basically a sham, almost wrestling match. But I was able to get some action down and some, I got my ways of doing that still. And like I said, I took Jake Paul by decision because I didn't think that, and anyone that says the idea that, that they respected him for not knocking Tyson out, he probably could have. Again, there's nothing in that. It's kind of why I'm able to kind of talk the way I talk to certain people sometimes, is that, no one's going to want to knock out a 5'7" ginger when they're 6'2". Not saying I just intentionally talk shit to people that are 6'2", 200 pounds or whatever, but it has happened once before back in the old Jameson days. But I don't think that I just don't think that I like having that out there as a revenue stream. I guess I'd say, again, I probably never would have watched the fight if it wasn't for being with somebody that wanted to watch the fight. But it also reminds me of back in the day with Floyd Mayweather, where Floyd Mayweather by decision was just always such a great bet out there, because Floyd Mayweather wasn't knocking anybody out anymore. And he was just going to outbox people, and, there was no value. Like, everybody likes to bet an underdog in boxing. It's one of the few times that laying chalk in gambling is actually not a bad idea, is boxing. Unless, as my bookie once told me when I lost on Manny Pacquiao fighting in Australia, Ryan, you never, ever bet the favorite when he's fighting in the underdog's home country. Always nice to get a great lesson from a bookie there. But, when you're kind of supporting yourself by doing a bunch of odd jobs for a summer and betting on baseball, maybe you shouldn't risk the whole bankroll on a boxing match, especially one where the underdog is fighting in his home country. And if you remember that Manny Pacquiao fight, I don't remember the name of the guy he was fighting, but they almost ended the fight at one point in time because the guy was getting the shit kicked out of him, and then somehow he wins the fight. But that's just a nice little sidebar rant. It's an ADD fest with me right now, obviously, which, if you want to see a real good episode of ADD at its finest, or ADHD at its finest, you should check out my episode with David James Pittman that I recorded a while back, which we need to really kind of edit up into some clips, because 2 hours and 20 minutes is a pretty intimidating length of an episode for two complete nobodies. But me and David are going to be working on that. In fact, David is going to be one of the episodes I'm going to be recording with later. Him and I, again, he started off as a negative commenter on my YouTube feed, and now we're kind of like almost these like really good friends who just really exist in talking on the phone, which being David's friend and the way that him and I can talk, I have to literally carve out schedule out of, some time out of my day. And I need a nap after talking to him sometimes. It's a wonderful conversation, but him and I still getting over something. Sorry, have some common interests, and I think that I can learn a lot from the guy. So that's kind of why, put yourself out there in the world. Don't just stay in your little hole there. And you never know who you might meet. I've been meeting some great people along the way. I've got another episode I'm recording later on today that's I don't even really know how to get into so much to unpack in this one, but I'll just say that people, when I'm done with this episode, might feel differently. If you're somebody who likes the idea of having the open border in the South, I think that you'll change your mind based on this one. And you'll also might have some conspiracy theories that certain people have may gain some credence through her story. It's going to be an episode that I'm going to be not talking a lot. I'm probably going to be doing mostly listening because she had a lot to say. And that was, again, usually when I have a guest on, I screen them for like 5 minutes or so, see how we communicate together. This woman, I maybe did about 5% of the talking on there. And that was mostly just to try and let her know that I was still listening kind of thing, or just trying to give her idea of that. I'm like, I need to bring some light to some of these situations. So, we got the lady friend calling. Let me just take care of this real quickly. This is wonderful podcast content. Hey, babe, I am in the middle of recording something on a live stream right now. So if you want to go on my YouTube channel, you can watch me. But I'm going to be finishing up in a couple minutes, and I'll contact you back, okay? Okay, which she should probably be awake by now. It's, sometimes, so yeah, sometimes having a significant other can especially when she's a couple of years younger, not like terribly younger, but a couple of years younger. Sometimes I feel like an adult, makes me feel like a parent a little bit, but I did not put her out on here, and well, I'm sure we'll discuss her at some greater detail. Sidetracked completely once again. That's kind of how it rolls on this one, but yeah, so I'm going to be having that episode, and then actually in a little bit, I'm going to be recording an episode. I'm not going to do it live because I'm trying to put a couple of episodes in the can, so to speak. I have 1 or 2 days that I can actually get some of this stuff done. So as a way of better time management, I'm going to try to record a bunch of episodes on those days and then kind of slowly release them because some of them are not going to have time dated material on there. This one I wanted to discuss with some time dated material because obviously the Jake Paul fight happened over the weekend. I'm not an MMA guy, but I saw that John Bones Jones did his normal thing in UFC. And, it's kind of great now that he's won that it seems like certain athletes are, happy to show their support of our presidents, our president elect, I will say. We'll see when he actually does, if he does take office, because if you read certain things on the internet, then he never won the election, or they're going to have all these ways for him to not be there. But again, Twitter was not a bad place for a little bit. I was off of Twitter for a while. Then I got back onto Twitter. And again, it's Go525. It's just been one big sob fest, and the gaslighting has gone full extreme where it's like, I can't believe that's, one step forward, 2 steps back, I would say, as far as the way that things have gone on. Like I said, the theme of my one episode is that we can't leave it up to politicians to make the world a better place or this country a better place. It's up to the people. And it seems like that the people have spoken. A lot of people spoken as who they wanted there. The other people have spoken that they're not going to cooperate whatsoever. So that's going to be a lot of fun for the next 4 years in America, I'm sure. One thing I kind of took from all of this is that I have noticed that we've had some celebrations by different athletes as far as doing the Trump dance, that he does, which I should never ever dance on camera. I should never dance at all, really. George Carlin had a great bit about that, about how white people need to stop dancing, be lame, be white, and get the fuck off the dance floor, was his exact line. I know my role in society, and it ain't as a dancer. I'll just tell you that much. I really shouldn't even be a singer at all, but I did perform karaoke for my significant other there, which was something that she thought was very sweet. There's a video of it. I don't think I should ever post it. I absolutely butchered Moon Dance by Van Morrison, but that's a wonderful song for two people that met in October that, she thought was sweet. Thankfully, the style points got me something there because my singing voice is not so great. I do have people tell me I have a good talking voice, and the fact that I have people that are watching and listening and staying engaged with me, maybe I got something going on there. Nobody has said anything negative to me, but I have not seen any of the comments yet. So thank you everybody for sticking with me on this one. But yeah, no, it's wild for such a divisive person. For I noticed in the Detroit Lions game yesterday, there was a sack and a black guy and a white guy were doing the Trump dance in celebration together. I thought he was supposed to be dividing everybody, but it seems like he is bringing some people together. And more athletes again coming out there with support of it, but going to be taking constant criticism from mainstream legacy media, which certainly is bought and paid for by another side. But let's get back to the stuff that I actually know what to talk about a little more. A bet that I had made. Now, I have not been doing the greatest as far as I don't watch the NFL enough. I have not even been enjoying the NFL enough. And this has been reflected into that, my pick 'em against the spread pool. It's just not even worth talking about the record. I should post the picks that I make for people to fade. I do usually have one good one a week here and there. And I said, yeah, that's actually just the way I soften that down. I have a good one here and there. I kind of have been mapping out some games across the way where I kind of put those on the calendar. The Steelers over the Ravens was one that I had. Styles make fights. And for whatever reason, it's kind of like we'll make a Mike Tyson analogy. The Ravens, they're a big bad bully to a lot of teams. They're Mike Tyson, but when they face the Steelers are Evander Holyfield, where they do not back down. They are not intimidated. They are not scared. And for the Steelers to not score a touchdown and still win a game where the score at the end becomes a 2-point game, but I don't think the game was really that close. Now, granted, the Ravens did miss a couple field goals, but when you're relying on where Justin Tucker, with kickers, it just goes like that. I remember Mike Vanderjagt, he was the most accurate kicker of all time, and then all of a sudden just couldn't make one. It happens like that. And Justin Tucker, if his time is done as being the best kicker in NFL history, that might not be good for the Ravens because you saw that I think that the Ravens, they have some tough games coming up, and I'm thinking that they might be in a little bit of trouble. I'm sure that they'll still make the playoffs, but they're behind the ball now for the Steelers big time to win the division, where Lamar Jackson has to be everything that everyone said. He was the MVP favorite going into this game. Now, I discussed earlier in the year how I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that people even were discussing MVP odds, but because people bet on him, and that's really what this fuels this whole NFL obsession at this point is the gambling and the fantasy. You can't tell me it's the quality of the play. There at one point, like early in the season, Josh Allen was plus 230 as the early MVP favorites. I was able to get him at plus 300 just a few weeks ago, and I was basically looking at it as that this would be the week that he would kind of establish himself as that clear-cut favorite. I wouldn't say he's a clear-cut favorite right now, but he's down to plus 150, I believe. So I've got some value in the bank on that one. I think that Lamar has got a couple more losses coming up. The Bills, they're just rolling, and maybe not the greatest statistical season of Josh Allen's career, but when you look at the team that he has around him and the fact that the Bills have this record, you gotta, what's the definition of value? If you take the Bills off of that team or you take Josh Allen off that Bills team with the rest of that roster around them, you're looking at a below 500 football team. Right now, you're looking at one of the best football teams. Somebody who people will bring into conversations would be Jared Goff. Jared Goff, I think that the Lions could probably still be a winning football team with all the talent they have around him and the culture that Dan Campbell has built. And I just look at this as being Josh Allen's year to do this, whether it's the Bills' year. Ultimately, again, that victory over the Chiefs, while it's a sweet moment for Bills fans and it's, and it knocks off the undefeated Chiefs, it means nothing unless they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And that's kind of the thing where they overcame that moment. I kind of compared the Chiefs a while to being like Tiger Woods on Sunday, where everybody just kind of freezes up around him or ceases to know how to exist when they're that close. And for the Bills, the fact that they went for it on 4th and 2, that was going to be a long field goal with an unreliable field goal kicker. And the idea that if you do get that score a touchdown on that drive, or at least give the Chiefs less time to work with the ball, it makes it a lot easier to win. And for Josh Allen to have that run, that is going to be his. Let's just use this crazy example that I have grandchildren someday and they ask me about Josh Allen. That will be the play that I will use to say that's what Josh Allen was right there. 4th and 2, a 26-yard touchdown, trucking his way into the end zone. I can't imagine if you could take the energy that was at the Bills stadium and inject it into my veins, I would be jumping through the fucking screen right now. And I say this, I was a Bills fan at one point in time in my life, but I jumped ship. I lived out in Western New York. I did not necessarily get along with a lot of the Bills Mafia and the way that they thought about football, or basically I just thought just because you guys get drunk and yell at shit and break shit doesn't make you great fans. But I am excited for them this year. I do look at that this could potentially be the Bills' year. And another person whose year it could be, it is amazing to think in that, this is why, again, I'm not saying you need to listen to guys like me, but maybe don't listen to the guys in mainstream media, because how many people said that this was the year the Steelers would Mike Tomlin would not finish with a 500 or better record, and that this would probably be the year that they should move on from Mike Tomlin. They are now 9-2, I believe, or whatever the hell the record is. I think either way, the Steelers, they have now they're in the driver's seat in their division, making a quarterback change. I mean, taking two retread quarterbacks and making, and getting what they're getting out of them, and just really still kind of playing this old school football about defense and running the ball. And, their formula, I mean, I didn't see it worked to success. I mean, it was kind of a little concerning, I guess I would say, that they weren't able to get any deep shots on the porous Ravens secondary. But again, when those two teams get together, you just got to kind of throw it all out. But Russell Wilson still throws one of the better deep balls in the NFL. And it just seems like he's got some playmakers on the outside with George Pickens. And probably one of the worst bets I've ever made in my life is I bet Mike Williams to score a touchdown yesterday. I'm not sure if Mike Williams even played yesterday, or I definitely didn't have any catches. I know that much. He had 0 yards, and I was thinking, 40 yards and a Mike Williams touchdown, fucking just got to hit one deep shot on there. Not doing that so much, but with watching how they did this, early on in the Jets game, where again, Russell Wilson got booed in his first quarter in Pittsburgh. And then in the second quarter, started throwing some deep balls there where either lets his playmakers go up there and make a play or draws a penalty. The idea that you have to play back on them and then the Steelers do their old school ground and pound. And when you look at the teams in the AFC, they're going to be going forward. It's going to have to be, it's going to be played in a lot of shitty weather, I think. Are the Steelers the best team in the NFL? No, I do not think so. But are they a team that anybody wants to play? Absolutely not. And it would be nice to see a coach like Mike Tomlin, who, I don't know anything about. I don't really care about Hall of Fames, but if that guy's not a Hall of Fame coach, then I don't know what is. It's going to come down to, as I would say, the coach of the year right now, it's probably going to be between him and Dan Campbell. And not saying Dan Campbell isn't a worthy candidate, but when you look at the roster that Dan Campbell has versus the roster that Pittsburgh has, and the teams that they're, the quality of the divisions that they're playing in, again, back to the MVP odds thing that I thought was ridiculous. The idea that Sam Darnold, there was actually conversations about, look at Sam Darnold's MVP odds. And I sat here and said, the guy will not fucking factor into a vote. I don't know what they are right now, but anybody that put any type of money on Sam Darnold to win the MVP, just donate it to charity next time. I mean, that was one of the dumbest things I ever saw in my life, was that Sam Darnold was drawing MVP votes, and he's still playing decent quarterback. I mean, he's still but he is what he is. He's just a middle of the road kind of guy that is in a good situation. But if you ever have it where the Vikings are down by 10 points, actually, he did have a pretty decent game against those said Lions, I would say. But for the most part, if the Vikings are down 10 points and Sam Darnold's at quarterback, if you've got a bet on the other side, you don't exactly have your asshole puckered up. I would finish that one with. So I don't know. We're kind of getting into the swing of things here again. And, I've been shitting on the NFL a lot this year. Yesterday is going to be one of those days that people would want to throw back in my face. I'll just say that let's just look forward to this Sunday when we had some good matchups. And I think that the problem the NFL has is that they've made it too quarterback driven. I mean, I guess because that's kind of the way that I view it now. We saw some great games yesterday, and those great games, the common thread was that they had two good quarterbacks on each side. I'd say the problem the NFL has is that it is a great product right now. When you have great quarterbacks, there's 32 teams. There's probably 8 quarterbacks that are able to play at a high level. So unless those guys are facing off against each other, you got some pretty shitty football as far as I'm concerned. But that was enough of me just kind of get some things out here. Did the live stream, carried a couple live people on there. I have not been doing the blackjack as much. One, because of timing. Two, because of, as a sales guy, I got to make some better sales, and unfortunately I got some fucking bills to pay. I just bought new furniture and shit, which if you're ever, I will say this much, if you are ever in the market for new furniture, shoot me a message here. I can make it happen to you for in a lot of different places in this country. And as somebody who went from having low quality furniture, I will say, who then had to sell a bunch of it on Facebook Marketplace to make room for his new furniture and did not have a comfortable place to sit for a couple days there. Um, you cannot underestimate, you know, there's an expression I use when I sell a mattress to somebody. There are three things you do not cheap out on. That is internet, toilet paper, and a mattress. Something like that you spend as much time on and being comfortable can change your life, can change your day. Everybody, for thank you for tuning into this episode of the Scho-Zone. Again, this was just kind of a live rant, a little bit of a fucking brain dump kind of deal, but just kind of getting my warm-up reps in for the rest of the group. I'm going to be having some guests on later, and I'll be posting some of those episodes throughout the week. So everybody, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like me say. And until next time, thank you for joining us. And now I got to do my signature thing, which is when I start room with David, I might have a producer at my disposal. Having a producer might be a big deal for me because I will then be able to focus on the word garbage that I put out here and not get sidetracked by having to do some things. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Everything ends bad, or would it end at all?